Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie, and welcome back to another DraftKings UCL soccer slate breakdown. Hope you guys had a better Tuesday slate than I did. I just couldn't get the right attackers from all the goals. I knew there'd be a lot of goals, but just happened to pick the wrong guys. It happens, so I'm happy for the opportunity for hopefully a bounce back slate for this Wednesday slate. In terms of the games, it is Bayern, Arsenal, Man City, Real Madrid. Definitely, I think the what people would say is kind of the better teams on paper going this day. In terms of odds, Man City are a slight favorite at minus 150, and Arsenal and Bayern is basically a toss-up. Bayern have a slight edge there, but in terms of aggregates, it's honors even in both games. 3-3 in Man City and 2-2 in Bayern Arsenal. And with the no away goal rule, it's basically 0-0. This is just two games, so just whoever wins wins. In terms of projected lineups, Man City, if it's this team, De Bruyne splitting with Foden or Bernardo, maybe, it's Pep Guardiola. So he will not hesitate to change any little minute detail for his team in these big games. Like he's a big tinker, and set pieces are a part of that. Like last game against Luton, we saw Julian Alvarez take everything over De Bruyne, which was crazy to see. However, I think De Bruyne probably ends up hopping back on, but we could maybe see Grealish take over him. Could maybe see like Foden take a monopoly or something. I mean, Bernardo takes everything. That's just just gotta know what you're dealing with Pep, and that is just an air of unpredictability with them at all times. But De Bruyne should be the safest on paper, but we shall see how that actually shakes out. For Real Madrid, Toni Kroos monopoly if it's this team. If we see Modric in somehow, they probably split. If we see Modric and no Kroos, it'll be Modric on everything. But that's them. Definitely not as finicky as Man City is. For Bayern, I want to say Kimmich monopoly. We could see Sane take a small share. Sane didn't play the Bayern game over the weekend, their league game, missing through injury, but he's back healthy apparently for this one. Although Tuchel did say that they might manage his minutes a little bit and they'll see how long he actually can go. So that's a little thing to think about there. For Arsenal, Saka and Rice split. That's it's interesting that they still Odegaard, I think, has like a small knock or something. It's interesting they don't have him starting. It surprised me a little bit if they don't go with him, considering he's the club captain. He's one of their best players. And if he's in, he'd take a few free kicks or you maybe have a small pinch of a set piece share if in. In terms of prices, Foden's the most expensive for good reason. Like he's been just super solid. Look how many goal contributions he's getting. It's kind of insane. So I'm very happy just to plug him in cash. I know I did that with Griezmann, it didn't work out for the Tuesday slate, but I'm happy to play the quote unquote obvious option once again here. Same with Saka. Like I think I'll probably go Saka, Foden in cash, the two most expensive guys. They probably have the highest floor on the slate in terms of forwards. You could maybe argue Bernardo, maybe, but I don't know. I'd rather just go Foden and Saka over him. Oh, there's those big name GPP kind of ceiling guys like Harry Kane, like Vinny Jr., like Erling Haaland. We're all good players, but I always tend to target the floor more and to my detriment sometimes, but I feel like in the long run it works out more often than it doesn't. So I'm probably going Foden and Saka, but for GPP, like I'll have shares of probably all these guys. Like this whole like first six people are all solid, except Alvarez who probably won't play. But even if he's in, he's not bad either. He's a little expensive for me, but definitely an option. Especially if they go Julian Alvarez and no De Bruyne, probably means Alvarez sets, and then he's a lock. But with De Bruyne, he just becomes another city ceiling piece. And he's one of the more expensive ones for a guy who doesn't usually play 90 minutes. That's my thoughts on him there. Some of these Bayern guys, like the Musiala, could be a bit of a differential. I feel like some of these mid-range forwards probably get overlooked a little bit because of how many really big top dogs there are. Like a Rodrigo, I could see getting overlooked, like a Musiala. Was Martinelli projected? I didn't see. He was. 6,600 is super cheap for him. I could definitely tempt myself into playing that potentially, even in cash. Like that is super, super cheap. Although you are worrying about his minutes a little bit, considering they have Trossard and a bunch of other guys who could come in. There's Sonic. That is 5,500 super cheap too. I worry about his minutes a little bit though, and the fact that he hasn't really taken that many set pieces. That first game that between Arsenal and Bayern, that first leg was kind of really eye-opening to me just to show how much Arsenal are willing to hold the ball and Tuchel is kind of really willing to sit off and allow them to do that, which scares me a little bit, just in terms I feel like they'll lack a little bit of floor in playing that kind of deep sitting back style. But he's like almost the cheapest forward. Havertz too, if he starts at striker, they don't have him there, but if he ends up there, I think it's a super solid play for 5,700. That is super cheap. Midfielders, De Bruyne is the big name. Happy to core him if he starts. Ended up missing the first leg through illness. I don't see why they wouldn't play him now unless it's just a case of Pep overthinking again. But he didn't even take a thing against Luton. He had like 20 points or something and like seven open play crosses. Like he's just probably made for the daily fantasy sports scoring system. A guy who gets a ton of shots, tons of key passes. Like, look at this 40 points in the one Champions League game he's played. If that doesn't show you his quality, I don't know what does. Trossard, 7,500. I think he's a little much. I'd rather have Martinelli than him for the 1,000 difference. And they're both going to be splitting time anyway, so there isn't really a reason why he should be that much more than Martinelli. Bellingham, that's a pretty cheap price for Jude. Gone down about a K. Yeah, K exactly, since the first leg was not great there. And Man City's a tough matchup away. But for GPP, I get behind him. For cash, I think I'd avoid. Jack Grealish, he was super solid the first leg. But if De Bruyne is in, I think that decreases his chances of taking set pieces a little bit more. And I'm kind of surprised he went 90 against Real Madrid. I think that's a bit of an anomaly. I don't expect him to do that on the regular, especially considering how good Doku played against Luton, and they're kind of competing for the same position. So I imagine one will sub in for the other likely. Kimmich, that's a super cheap Kimmich price. I know he was not great against Arsenal the first leg, but he's got a second home leg, or he's got the home leg now. That was away. And we've kind of seen today, especially the home teams have gone for it a little bit more. Barcelona, I know, got that red card, so that's kind of a non-factor for me. But you looked at Dortmund and you got to see how much the crowd got up for that game. And I think that's a super underrated factor here. And I could see Kimmich becoming a lot more solid than he was that first leg. I'm probably gonna go one of Kimmich or Odegaard if he's in my cash build, I imagine. Odegaard just super solid for floor. He always has been. Doesn't necessarily need to take set pieces. He gets a ton of key passes, plays 90 minutes without fail when he can. So those are my thoughts there. Everyone else, I'm kind of pretty lukewarm on. I like Rodri usually, but I think there's a lot of really good options here, and he's a little much for his usual role, especially if they run this pretty attacking lineup with De Bruyne in. Like these front four slash five are going to be the guys who you'd expect to get the most action offensively. But Rodri's going to go the distance, so that's the advantages of him. And he's just another guy who finds a way to get points usually. So it's like a last man in. I don't think it's that crazy. Um, Sorry, my dog is being loud. Declan Rice, 5,600. I'm usually a Declan Rice advocate, but we've seen how high scoring these games have been, and especially if he's at the six or something, like if there's no Jorginho, he becomes a fade for me. But as an eighth, I don't think he's that crazy of a play. Like I don't mind him that much, but it is an away leg, and there's a lot of really good options. Like I probably lean towards going City guys than someone like a Declan Rice. Tony Kroos, Monopoly set taker. However, Man City are not going to afford you a ton of set pieces is the issue. But for 5,200, that's not bad as a value play. Goretzka, he kind of broke the slate really for how cheap he was, 3,900 with 9 points. GPP for me or last man, and I guess is all right. I wish he was a little bit cheaper. Kovacic, he was insane against Luton. He had like 25 points for 3K. If he starts, I don't mind that either for that cheap. You're gonna need some value somewhere, so I don't mind a Kovacic, like a Jorginho, or any of these guys just as last man in. For defender, I don't really love any of the defenders. If Guerrero starts, could end up potentially taking a small share of set pieces. I'd say he's the pick of the bunch, just in terms of floor. Everyone else is kind of whatever to me. Gavardiol, I know, has been super hot. He's had like 19 points last game against Real Madrid, had like 25 points against Luton. I just don't think it's sustainable. He's gotten to a point where I think he's just too much for me. I don't really want to go back there. I'd rather just punt defender in favor of picking attackers over him. I don't think there's really a ton of really good defender options. So Rico Lewis starts in the midfield, which I'd get behind. But everyone else, like, just kind of whatever for me. I like John Stones when he was 2,800. Now he's priced up a little bit, not as big of a fan of. Like, I'm happy to punt defender here. Like a Tomiyasu would be perfect. Saliba wouldn't be bad for like Mendy, whatever. I just use the defender slots as value plays to make the rest of my attackers fit for cash. In terms of a core, I'm gonna pay up. I'm playing the two most expensive forwards and two most expensive midfielders, I think. Didn't work on Tuesday, but I'm gonna continue to do it because to me it just makes the most sense on paper. They're the most likely guys to do something for their teams. They're all 90-minute players usually, with probably a small asterisk on De Bruyne and Foden, considering Pep can overcomplicate things at times. But then others, you'll see him barely make any subs like he did the first leg and let everyone kind of play. But yeah, I'm starting like that. I'll find value somewhere. Like there's a couple of cheap bids I'm interested in, like a Tony Kroos or Odegaard too are fine. Happy to punt defender. Goalkeeper, crapshoot as usual. I don't even know who the top scoring goalie was in this last slide. Maybe even Kobo with like a 4 or something. But I expect this game to be high scoring again. And I'm just gonna hope that I just get attackers right. I think that's what it comes down to. But yeah, guys, that'll be it. Good luck, and I'll see you for the next video. Peace.